What if the very substances people turn to for health and healing can actually drag you down, causing you to fall deeper into despair? The drug epidemic is not just a social crisis, it's a spiritual battle for the soul of a nation. Perhaps the most devastating plague of all is the one that affects the mind and body through the use of drugs. Babylon is in the grips of a devastating opioid crisis, with fentanyl leading the charge, followed by a host of other deadly substances like pills, cocaine, and injectable drugs. This epidemic has destroyed countless lives, tearing families apart and leaving communities in ruins. The Bible speaks of the spiritual consequences of such destructive behavior. Revelation 9 verse 21 tells us this. And they did not repent of their murders or their sorceries or their sexual immorality or their thefts. The word sorceries here is translated from the Greek word pharmakia, which can also refer to drugs. This verse highlights how drug abuse is not just a physical affliction, but also a spiritual affliction that can lead people further away from Yahuah. Let's watch this short video, and we will be right back.
It is showing up in street drugs. It's causing skin disease, severe wounds, which could even lead to limb amputation. And it is leaving law enforcement agencies puzzled. First things first, what is xylazine? The animal tranquilizer is known by street names like Tranq, zombie drug. It came into being in 1962 as an anesthetic for veterinary procedures. In human beings, the drug led to the respiratory depression and low blood pressure issues. So the trials were stopped. It then started being used as an addictive substitute for heroin. And this started most likely in the 2000s. It causes wounds, which, if left untreated, can lead to amputation. It can knock you out for hours, so it can leave the users vulnerable for long periods of time. Let me now tell you what's happening in Philadelphia. More than 90% of the lab-tested dope samples there were positive for xylazine. More than 90%. And this problem is not just limited to Philadelphia. This is happening increasingly in drug-hot zones across the country. A study published in June detected xylazine in the drug supply in 36 states and the District of Columbia. In New York City, xylazine has been found in 25% of the drug samples. The zombie drug is causing horror across America. And how exactly? The animal sedative is being mixed with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It was originally developed as a painkiller for surgery. It has a specific chemical structure with multiple areas that can be modified, often illicitly, and it is being used to bulk up supplies of illicit fentanyl, worsening its impact. Basically, the dangerous sedative is infiltrating the country's illicit drug supply, being found in substances like fentanyl. And this highlights how dangerous the drug supply has really become. In fact, in November, the US Food and Drug Administration warned the healthcare professionals about the drug, and this is what complicates the matters. It does not show up in routine toxicology screens and can be difficult to distinguish it from opioid use. And since it's not an opioid, xylazine may not respond to a standard treatment for opioid overdoses. It's also becoming increasingly prevalent in overdose deaths. And now let me tell you why this is a serious problem. Overdose deaths in the US involving opioids have been on the rise. The number increased from just over 70,000 in 2020 to almost 81,000 in 2021.
The Bible also warns us of the consequences of indulging in such destructive behaviors. 1 Timothy 6 verses 9 to 10 says this. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. The drug epidemic in Babylon is fueled by greed and a desire for quick riches, leading many to stray from the path of righteousness. This plague has not only brought physical destruction, but has also torn apart the moral fabric of society, leading to an increase in crime, violence, and despair. The plague of contaminated food. What happens when the very sustenance meant to sustain life has been compromised? America's food supply, which should be a source of nourishment and life, has become tainted with chemicals, toxins, and harmful practices that endanger health. From genetically modified organisms, GMOs, to pesticides, preservatives, and foodborne illnesses. In modern times, where we see nationwide recalls, the crisis is exacerbated by the widespread use of harmful chemicals and unethical practices in agriculture and food production. Foods are often laced with preservatives, artificial flavors, and other additives that compromise health, leading to a rise in diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and autoimmune disorders. The contamination of food is not just a physical issue but also a spiritual one, reflecting a society that has turned away from Yahuah's natural order of food consumption and his commandments regarding the land and how to produce our food. Furthermore, the exploitation of natural resources and the manipulation of food for profit reveal the greed that has taken hold of Babylon. The Bible provides guidance on the types of foods that are clean and unclean, warning Israelites against the consumption of certain animals, including swine. In Leviticus, Yahuah clearly outlines the dietary laws for his people. Leviticus 11 verses 7 to 8 says this: "And the swine, though it divides the hoof, having cloven hooves, yet does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch. They are unclean to you." Despite this clear instruction, the consumption of bad food has become widespread in Babylon, leading to various health issues such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity. All these conditions are a stark reminder of the consequences of disregarding Yahuah's commandments. The Bible warns against such lifestyles. Philippians 3 verse 19 tells us this: "Whose end is destruction, whose Elohim is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who set their mind on earthly things." James 1 verse 12, it says this: "Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which Yahuah has promised to those who love him." Yahuah calls his people to be holy, which means to be set apart for his purposes. This means that there can be no compromise with Babylon. We must come out of her. In 1 Peter 1 verses 15 to 16, it says this: "But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, because it is written, 'Be holy, for I am holy.'